friends, it's Jessie here. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new. For today's video, we are going to be doing my budget results for the first full week in September. My husband's first paycheck budget here. I wrote out this budget with you all in a previous video, which I will link up above if you missed it. But today we're going to be looking at this actual column and filling all of this in. We're also doing something a little bit different for me. We're going to do a weekly check-in. I see people use a weekly check-in for their variable spending all the time, and it's never really been something on my radar because typically I budget everything at the start of the week, and then by the end of the week I'm done. And it's my budget results and everything's done. However, I've decided that for some of my variable expenses, my variable spending, my cash envelopes, I'm going to be rolling money over week to week. Typically at the end of the week, I'm just done. If I have anything left over, I deposit it back into the bank and start fresh with the new week. But because I'm going to be rolling money over, I thought it might get a little confusing with this actual column. Like if I budgeted $40 for myself and I only spent $20, then I have $20 left. So then the next week when I were to write down my budget, how would I account for that $20? I was getting confused trying to figure it out. And so I decided to incorporate a weekly check-in for my variable expenses. So when I write the actual amounts in here, this will be the actual amount of money I took from the bank to use for that category, but it's not going to be what I actually spent. What I actually spent we'll figure out here with the weekly check-in. Now, I realize that this weekly check-in page does not match my September. I didn't bother to go back and make a weekly check-in for September. I just went ahead and did it in one of my October patterns. I'm getting everything set up and situated for my October releases for my printables, and this is one of the patterns. It's just like the Halloween pattern with the fun spiders and moons, this fun orange color. I didn't want to go back and create it here just because I had to print this out anyway to test it. I figure I might as well use it and not waste the paper and the ink. So all of that being said, we're doing things a little bit differently. I'm going to try to figure this whole weekly check-in thing out and try to make it work for the way that I budget. But for now, we're actually going to start over here with this paycheck budget worksheet where I wrote out my budget for the week. And we're going to just be looking at the amounts that I budgeted and then flipping to my calendar where I tracked all my transactions in a previous video. If you missed that, I will link it above as well. And we're going to just kind of see how this goes. So, starting out with the very first category here, which is Boost Mobile. I budgeted $130 for Boost. When I went in to pay that, I had a $10 credit to my account. I don't have any idea where that $10 credit came from, why I had it. I need to call Boost and find out, but the bill told me I only owed $120. So that is what I went ahead and paid. And as you can see here, I did mark that. It's already been paid $120. So I budgeted $130, but I only spent $120. So that goes in black ink. If I have a scenario where I'm over budget, by the way, I'm going to use red ink. This is a red pen that I got in a big bundle of gel pens from Amazon that I paid like $6 for. It was one of these promotions, like flash sales or something. And it's just the red pen I happened to grab today. I have a lot of pens, and that's not all of them. So if we are over budget in any categories, I'll use the red. Otherwise, it'll be in black. All right, next up, I have our camper payment. I budgeted $200 for that. I really should put a little bookmark or something in this so that I can easily get right back to my calendar page. Here it is. So our camper payment came out here as well, and that was $200 just as anticipated. So that gets written in black as well. Okay, for food, I budgeted $300. we had a whole lot of food transactions that happened this week. I use my little calendar here and track my transactions using a color coding system. You can see by my key here that food is in yellow. By the way, the week we're looking at is September 7th through the 13th. We budget paycheck to paycheck, so we're only looking at the transactions that happened during this pay period. So I need to get my calculator and add up all of these yellow stickers, and it is a lot. So let's just go ahead, get that done so we are not here all day. Okay, so we had $124.30 on Tuesday, and I'm going to check these off as I go. We had $31.56 on Wednesday, $9.79 plus $15.89 plus $55.92 plus $17.34 plus $27.73 for a grand total of $282.53. Now, this is where that weekly check-in comes in. So I budgeted $300. I only spent $282.53. However, the difference there is going to roll over into next week. So in order for my totals here to match my actual totals in the bank, I'm going to go ahead and write in $300 because we pulled $300 from our budget to cover groceries. It hasn't all been spent yet, but $300 is what we used. Now, if we had come in over budget here, if it was $382, for example, I would write in that actual $382 to make our numbers match. But in this case, $300 is already spoken for food. I don't have that money available to spend anywhere else. So the budgeted amount is $300. What I actually took out of the bank for food is $300. Though technically I didn't take it out of the bank. It's still in the bank, but it's already spent. Does that make sense? Am I confusing anyone? I hope not. So this is where that weekly check-in will come in then. So I'm going to go ahead and flip over. This is a little bit different for me. Like I said, I'm still trying to figure it out. If there's an easier way to do this, feel free to leave it in a comment below. But I'm going to start out here under week 1, since this is week 1. And one of the categories we're going to track with my weekly check-in is food. So we started out the week with a zero balance. We added $300 for food. That was what we budgeted for the first week. We spent $282.53, and that leaves us with a balance of $17.47 remaining. So that's what we're going to start with for week 2. So I'll just go ahead and write that in for week 2 here. Our food starting balance is $17.47, and then whatever we add this week to go towards food will get written in here, what we spend and then what we have remaining to go into week 3. Does that make sense? Is this how people do the weekly check-in? I don't know. I don't know if this is going to work for me. We're trying something brand new here on my channel. Leave me some feedback down below. Am I doing this right? I don't know. But that's how we're going to handle food. And I'm going to put a little asterisk here just so that when I'm looking back, I'm not confused. And I'm just going to put a little key down here and let myself know to check my weekly check-in for actual totals. You guys all have to let me know if this is right. For gas, this is another one of these things where I budgeted $50. We only technically spent $42, if you can see that here, but we allotted the full $50. So I'm going to write that we took an actual $50. This would be a little bit different, I think, if we were pulling it out in cash it would make more sense to me if this was pulled out in cash, because then it's already out of my account and accounted for. So maybe that's something I need to do in the future, is just take it out in cash so that it's gone, so I'm not looking at my numbers confused. I can always still continue to use my credit card for these things and then do the same thing I do when I use my sinking funds. Just go in and take the cash and deposit it back in the bank. That might be what I do in the future, so as not to confuse myself. But for now, that's what I'm gonna do. So for gas then, we'll write that in under week 1, gas. We started out the week with a 0 balance, but then we added $50. We spent $42, and that leaves us with, what, $8 remaining? And then that will be our week 2 starting balance. Before we add any money from week 2, we started with $8. Yeah, this is making sense to me, I think. The only reason I'm confused is because that money's still in the bank. But I don't want to look at my total here and compare it to the bank and realize, hey, I still have money in the bank, maybe I should spend it, when it's already technically accounted for. Alright? Okay, so the last thing under checking then is an unbudgeted expense. We do not budget for unbudgeted expenses, hence the term, but if something comes up, that's where I put it. So we did have an unbudgeted expense of $225 for pest control. So that goes in red, $225 that we overspent this week. We didn't account for it. We didn't know it was coming. So that was for pest control. We had an infestation of yellow jackets at our camper that we had to take care of. My husband, who is not afraid of anything in this world, is afraid of bees in a major way. So he wasn't going to deal with it. We just called the exterminator to take care of that. Okay, so we budgeted a total of $680 here under our checking category. We're going to be over budget, obviously, because of that unbudgeted expense. The amount that we actually spent, or actually set aside to be spent, 120 plus 200 plus 300 plus 50 plus 225 was $895. So we are over budget. I think I'm most likely going to be taking that unbudgeted expense just right out of my checking account cushion, my buffer. I still have to figure that out. But for now, that's an awfully pretty sparkly red and an awfully negative connotation. So maybe I shouldn't use glitter pens for this, but it is what it is. Moving on. Okay, so for cash envelopes, we have my husband's spending money. We budgeted $40. I gave him $40. See, in this case, it makes sense. I don't know that he spent that full $40, but it's out of my budget and it's out of my hands. He didn't take any more than $40, so we're not over budget. If he has any more, he will just roll it over into next week. So $40 came out of my budget and is accounted for. And I'm not going to bother putting that on my weekly check-in because, again, I don't know what he spends his money on. I don't care what he spends his money on. It's not something I need to keep track of. Next up is my spending. We budgeted $40. I did take $40 out of the bank. So that is what the actual amount is. However, when it comes to spending, if we go back here to my calendar, you will see I track my personal spending in this light purple color. If you guys can see that there, but we don't have any stickers because I didn't spend any of my money. So again, we'll kind of fill in this weekly check-in, and I don't know if I'm going to do it the same way every week with flipping back and forth and filling these pages out at the same time. You guys will have to let me know what you think about that, but for now it's working for me while I kind of figure everything out. So I started the week with 0, then we added $40. I spent nothing, so I have $40 remaining. And I'm just going to check really quickly in my envelopes where I have the cash and make sure that that is what I have. So food we know is in the bank, so there's no money in there. That's a separate issue. I'm going to take food out in cash from now on, I think, to make it easier. Even though I am definitely going to be swiping a credit card to cover those transactions, I will just swipe the credit card, put the cash back in the bank. I know that probably seems silly, but that'll help my brain to see the balances match. So gas, we should have $8 in there. Oh, that's my spending. Oh, gas is in the bank as well, so that's another thing we're going to pull out in cash. My spending, I do indeed have the $40 remaining, so that's just going to stay in there, and I will add more money to it when I stuff my cash envelopes this week. So that makes sense to me. So $40 came out of the budget, therefore $40 was actually spent, even though it wasn't actually spent yet. I feel like I'm making this more complicated than it has to be. For Austin, I gave him his $20. That was as expected. Miscellaneous, I pulled that $20 out of the bank, so that was as expected as well. So my budgeted amount of $120 matches the actual amount of $120. That's what I pulled from the bank. And if we look here, though, at my calendar, you can see we actually did not spend anything in miscellaneous either. We still have that full $20 here in my cash envelope. So yeah, this is making sense to me. I know I'm overcomplicating it and convoluting the whole situation, but it's making sense to me. That's what matters. So I'm just going to put little asterisks next to these ones that are in my weekly check-in just for future Jessie's approval here. So really then, in this case, this paycheck budget should always go as expected, unless I have an unbudgeted expense or one of my bills comes in lower. So that's interesting. Okay. For my sinking funds, this all went as planned. You guys saw me stuff these cash envelopes. This all went just as anticipated. For Lowe's, we did pay an extra $50. Right here, you can see that. So that went as planned as well. For a total of $50. So now we have our totals here. I'm not going to write in the income since we don't share my husband's income. You guys know this by now if you're not new here. So income is going to remain blank, but checking, we spent $8.95. So I'll go ahead and write that in red since we're over budget there. Cash envelopes, that money came out as planned. Sinking funds, that money came out as planned. Extra debt, that money came out as planned. So what I would do is take the income amount, subtract all of this, get a remaining balance, and that remaining balance is what would go down here under rollover, which again I leave blank just so it's not, just so you can't do the reverse math and figure out what my husband's paycheck was essentially. And I did take that $20 out for the Pirate Booty Challenge. You guys would have seen that if you watched my cash stuffing video. You can see it here. I did use it to make some change. I had smaller bills, but I made some change for myself, so that 20 is still sitting there. So that all went as planned. I'm pretty happy about that. I am going to really quickly, was there another category that I wanted to put in here? Yeah, miscellaneous. I skipped right over it because I was too busy trying to explain myself out of a corner here. So miscellaneous, the starting balance at the start of the week was 0. We added 20. We spent nothing. That leaves us a remaining balance to go into the new week of $20. And then we'll go ahead, I guess, and write our unbudgeted in here. The starting balance is 0, though. We don't, maybe I don't need to put unbudgeted here. Well, I've already committed to it. It's already written in permanent ink, so we didn't add anything. We spent $225. So that leaves us with a remaining balance of, what, negative $225. I don't know if I'll continue to do unbudgeted here moving forward, but it's there now, so it is what it is. All right, let me just go ahead and write in these totals for the start of week 2, because I'm about to write my week 2 budget. So my spending envelope is starting with $40. My miscellaneous envelope is starting with $20, and I guess unbudgeted is starting with -$225. And hopefully we won't have any other unbudgeted expenses, and we will end the month with just this -$225 that I can then pay out of my buffer. Does that make sense? I think that makes sense. All right, friends. That was a look at my weekly check-in and my budget results. Let me know how you liked this video. Do you want to continue to see videos like this? I can probably scratch my budget results video, since it's always going to pretty much go as planned. And anything that doesn't go as planned goes into my weekly check-in. Leave me some feedback down below. I've managed to confuse myself thoroughly, but I think I'm going to like this weekly check-in. I definitely like the design. I'm so excited for October. So be on the lookout for new printables coming to my shop, hopefully by the end of this week. I'm working on the listings now. I just got a little backed up with the first week back to school with my son and soccer season and everything going on. So be patient. They're coming, I promise. You're going to get all of my budget printables, including this new weekly check-in, in this fun Halloween theme. And I'm also doing a second theme, which is more autumnal with these pretty leaves. So leave me a comment down below. Tell me which design you like better, and if you plan on purchasing printables from my shop for October. I do, of course, have my September printables available if you like this pattern, and I have yellow ones from August that you can still use throughout the year because they're not dated. You know, like this paycheck budget worksheet, it doesn't have a month on it. You can use it at any time you want. So feel free to check out my Etsy shop. I appreciate your support. All of the income that I earn from my Etsy shop is going straight to my debt after I pay taxes on it, of course. So if you purchase from my Etsy shop, you're totally helping me to on my journey to become debt free. So I appreciate it so much. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.